Welcome to our weekly podcast featuring GeauxPreps.com and CrescentCitySports.com. I'm Ken Trahan, joined by Hunter Bauer of GeauxPreps, and great to have you with us as always, and it's fun to be talking about high school football in the postseason. And that, of course, starts this week with 7 games on Thursday, everything else on Friday. Hunter, obviously this is what we've been waiting for. We finally have the opportunity to talk about championships and who might be those particular teams that we can look for in December in Caesar Superdome.
Yeah, absolutely. Hay is in the barn, so to speak, and it's time to put up or shut up for a lot of these schools here in the postseason. So it's an interesting time of the year, Ken. Just going through the brackets and seeing the first round matchups, potential matchups in later rounds. I think this is going to be a really good year for high school football playoffs.
All right, let's start non-select brackets. Division 1, Ruston is the number 1 seed. Bearcats made it to the championship game last year, lost. Their undefeated record-wise, lost a game on the field but got a forfeit, but they've been really good against a very tough schedule, and certainly they're clearly a favorite. Their neighbor and rival, Neville, of course, is right there as a 2nd seed this year, and the defending champion, unbeaten Trahan, right there as a 3rd seed too, and Airline, a high-scoring team, is a 4th seed. Let's start at the top there. I mean, Ruston has played a very tough schedule, and this is a team that is built to get back to the Dome, it would seem.
Yeah, no doubt. And, technically, throwing out the Warren Easton game in general, Ruston has just gone through every opponent that's been thrown at them, every really good opponent. And, I think they have a really good shot at getting back to the Superdome. Of course, there's a potential that they could match up with West Monroe in the quarterfinals, so we'd have to see how that goes there. And then there's also the St. Amants and the Sam Houstons of the world in that bracket as well. And you can't count on a really good Airline team. So, but yeah, look for Ruston, I think, to make a deep run either way. But I definitely think they get back to the Superdome this year.
Trahan's got everything. Their defense is outstanding. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. I see them having a great chance to not only get back but win it again. The only issue with Trahan would be, the strength of schedule. It just wasn't that difficult this year. But having seen them several times, they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, 20-something straight games won. Mm-hmm. Until you knock them off, they're the king of the hill right now, and they have a really good shot. As well, getting back to the finals. But Neville's one of those schools, they've been in 4A traditionally, but they've always played up to 5A schools in the regular season in non-district schedule and can compete against those 5A schools. So don't count out the Tigers up there in Northeast Louisiana. They're a really good squad. Really, they have a lot of depth, really good talent. And it would be interesting to see a Trahan-Neville matchup in the semifinals. I think that would be awesome because they would have to go to Neville. Tough environment to play in. But this non-select Division I bracket, Ken, I think it has the potential to be one of the best brackets this year. Could have some upsets along the way. You just never know.
All right, so let's talk about dark horses that, we just talked about the top teams, but dark horses in non-select Division I. I'll give you one or two. Dutchtown. Griffins are a really good football team with the ability to get it done on both sides of the football. I think this is a dangerous team. This is a 7th seed, and I really do like their chances to get to a quarterfinal matchup with Neville, the way things are right now constituted. I certainly would not rule out Central as a lower seed. I think Central's a very good football team as well, and I would keep a very close eye on Central. And the third one I would point to is Southside. They've played very tough competition. Yeah. They've competed well. I think those are teams that I would look at as dark horse teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the first one that pops out to me, and I hate to call them a dark horse because they're always in the mix, but Zachary at the number 6 seed. They could potentially go up against Trahan in the quarters. That would be a great matchup. But never count out Coach Brew and his Zachary squad. They're always prepared for a deep playoff run. Another one I would think, number 12, Sam Houston. They've had such a resilient year bouncing back from all these problems with the hurricanes and the floods and all that over here in Lake Charles. Have played a really good schedule. Actually beat Southside in the regular season finale. I would watch them. And, Ken, you never can count out West Monroe. I know they've gone through a lot this year, but they're a number 8 seed. Never count out the Rebels in the postseason.
Nope. And before we move on to Division II, one game, if you're looking at one game in Division I, is the best first-round matchup. I would point to Belle Chase Parkway. Belle Chase will run the ball, shorten the game dramatically, hardly throw it, very disciplined, very well coached. Parkway has the ability to score and plays differently. I think that's an intriguing matchup. What about a game that you would point to?
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at it, that Walker-Benton game kind of stands out, as well as Westgate and Terrebonne. I think those are two games that the lower seed could easily win. Benton's such a good team. They just have such a tough schedule in that 1-5A district, and they played a lot of good non-district teams along the way as well. And then Terrebonne, much improved. They really one of the best teams compared to last year coming into this year. But Westgate's no slouch in their own right. So those are two games that I probably would look at and say, could go either way.
Moving to non-select Division II, North DeSoto. The number 1 seed, Dennis Dunn, got his team to the championship game a year ago. They had a great season. Very high-scoring team. Cecilia, 9-1 team, the number 2 seed, has had a really good season as well. And Assumption in Bayou Land has really played well, have a lot of skill at number 3. Lutcher, the defending champion, at number 4. So you've got to give North DeSoto a lot of credit. And right now, they would appear to be the slight favorite in this division.
Absolutely. And, as the weeks have progressed, Ken, Cecilia's name keeps coming up in a lot of conversations, and just, they're really good. Diesel Solari, one of the best athletes dual athletes that I think are in the state right now, performing in the state right now. But North DeSoto, I think, is just the total package. Coming off of last year, the runner-up against Lutcher, and what they have done so far this year, and the numbers they have put up, you certainly can't count them out. But Assumption and Lutcher too, in their own right. Really good teams. Lutcher won the state title last year. Dwayne Jenkins always has them prepared as well. But, man, I would love to see a North DeSoto Cecilia matchup in the Superdome. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. And looking at, that bracket in terms of a dark horse team or two to look at, I would certainly point to Plaquemine. I think this is a pretty good football team, and I think they've got a pretty good draw too. And I like their chances to advance as far as the quarters, if not further. Abbeville's another team to keep an eye on at 13. I think this is another good football team. And Leesville at 7. I mean, Wassman at 6 is obviously good, but, Leesville at the 7, lost a close game to Gina, and that's a good football team. So those are a few for me as dark horses.
Yeah, one that sticks out to me is who Leesville is going to play this week, and that's St. Martinsville. They're number 26. But I was looking at their schedule, Ken. They played Cecilia, Notre Dame, Westgate, St. Charles. Holy wow, that was a very tough schedule for them. But St. Martinville is one of those teams that they're really good come playoff time as well. They know how to win in those big games. So I don't think Leesville has an easy game this week against St. Martinsville. Another team that maybe kind of sticks out to me just looking at this. I think this little quadrant of a bracket in itself. You got West Feliciana, Opelousas, Abbeville, as you mentioned, and then Lutcher. Man, what a tough quadrant of that bracket, and I think any one of those teams could end up maybe going to a semifinal match with the North DeSoto or a Plaquemine, whoever gets there as well. So look for any of those teams maybe to make a deep run.
Yep, Lutcher is very good defensively this year, not what they were offensively a year ago, but certainly good. In terms of the best matchup, look, I've got to go with Iota Church Point. They just played last week, and it was 48-44, and they got to turn around and play again.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was in my notes that I kind of was just writing down, and I said tough matchup, hard to beat the same team twice. Church Point's a really good squad. Iota's a really good squad. Both have played pretty good schedules on the year. That's going to be a toss-up right there.
All right, moving to non-select Division III, the Gina Giants are the number 1 seed. Yep. Very potent team offensively. Sterlington, traditional power, is the 2. St. James and Union Parish are the 3 and 4 teams. Starting at the top, obviously Gina has shown what it's capable of doing throughout the course of the year. We usually don't see a lot of teams from central Louisiana that are definitive threats to win it all, but certainly Gina is one of those.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And credit to Gina and what they've done this year. I mean, just a great squad. I'm glad to see somebody from central Louisiana having some sort of success. And it hasn't come easy. I mean, they've played Mangum, Leesville, Tioga, which is 8-2 on the year. A little bit of a rough, not a good district schedule, but competitive in its own right. But would love to see Gina make a run, especially for the central Louisiana squads.
Yep, Sterlington. You know what the Panthers are and how physical they are.
Yeah.
You got to line up with them and play nose to nose football if you want to beat that team. They've certainly got a great chance to get to the Dome from my perspective, and I'll certainly start there. In terms of dark horse teams, hard to call Amite a dark horse team based upon what they've done over the years, but this is a good football team. It's better than its record, having seen them. And I'll stay in that area because the number 5 seed Bogalusa, very dangerous. They've played a really tough schedule, and they've got as good a quarterback, if not the best quarterback, in that entire division in Ashton Levi. He's really good. Absolutely. I would certainly point to those two teams and say that these are dark horse teams for me. And, of course, Manny, a defending champion at a 6, certainly, even with a new coach, cannot be ignored.
Right, 5 and 6. That's my choices. What they were going to be. Ken, Bogalusa, you said it. Manny kind of after their jamboree kind of went away. People kind of wrote them off this year, and look what Dylan Barrett has done. I mean, the 6th seed, first year after Jess Curtis left. They got a really good running back in Jeremiah James, who's one of the top running backs in the state. I think they have a really good, not an easy path, but I think they have a favorable path maybe to get a quarterfinal matchup with St. James, which I think would be a really good matchup. But don't count out that South Plaquemine squad too. They're historically good, and they're on the up, and Lowfit's done really good over there. So a lot of good teams in this bracket.
All right, so we look at maybe the best game to look for, the best matchup or two that we might be looking at in this particular division. I think St. Helena Port Allen's a really good matchup of two teams. I mean, I think either team could win that particular game. I certainly see the same thing with Marksville and Mansfield. Your thoughts about matchups here?
Marksville and Mansfield, that was the one I was looking at. I think Mansfield's played a tough schedule this year, and they were with the Evangels and all those squads. So I think they in themselves have a good chance of beating 15, 18 seed. You hate to say upset, but upsetting the 15 seed Marksville squad and advancing to the second round.
Non-select Division 4, Logansport gets the 1 seed. Kentwood is the 2 seed with Oak Grove and Haynesville, traditional powers, at 3 and 4. And I think, frankly, any one of those 4 teams can win it. I think they're all capable of winning it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, man, that bottom half of the bracket, you've got Oak Grove, you've got Homer, you've got Kentwood, and you've got Mangum all on one side of the bracket. So just very, very tough side of the bracket. In my opinion, Ken, I think Oak Grove's going to be tough to beat by anybody. They're just so good this year again. Could go after another state title. But, don't count out Logansport. Their only loss was to a really good Calvary squad. And then, Haynesville blanks Homer last week in a district matchup. And then never count out the Kangaroos. So traditionally the best 4 in 1A every year, but don't count out the likes of the Homers and the Mangums as well.
No, I agree with you. The advantage for Kentwood would be getting a home game in the semifinals if they get there.
Absolutely.
But Logansport has clearly the best draw in terms of where they're at, being the 1 seed on the top end of the bracket. In terms of best matchup, I think Montgomery Lake offers an even matchup in this particular class.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other ones I was looking at, I think Franklin and Grand Lake. I think Franklin's going to be scary. I think they'll give, if they can get past Grand Lake this week, I think they'll give Logansport a run for their money. They're really improved in a good squad. That was the first game that popped out at me in this bracket.
All right, let's go to the select side. Division 1, Holy Cross is the number 1 seed, a surprise to many, but having seen them, not so much of a surprise. Captain Shreve elevating its program. They get the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Catholic of Baton Rouge third. Brother Martin is the 4. Look, I look at this bracket, and I'll just say it right now. We're not talking about dark horses, but John Curtis is the team to beat. I'll just start right there.
Absolutely. In this bracket, it's a gauntlet for any team, Ken. Any team that's in this bracket. But you got to look at John Curtis and, man, just what they've gone through this year and how they bounced back and what they've done. Shutting out an Edna Carr squad, I mean, come on. Certainly the favorite in this bracket. But in its own right, look at some of these top 8 seeds, Edna Carr, Holy Cross, Brother Martin. Definitely going to be some dang good matchups in these second and third rounds.
Well, I'm looking at Karen Crow Acadiana in a rematch in the second round. And, boy, I mean, what a great regular season game. And then, if the seeds hold up, the winner of that game would play Holy Cross. I think that would be a fantastic game.
That's true.
Looking at that down the road. Carr and Brother Martin could rematch in the quarterfinals. That would be a really good matchup as well. And, nobody's talking about Captain Shreve. They lost to Calvary Baptist, but they're 9-1, and it's a good football team, and they must be taken seriously. So
absolutely.
Dark horses, look, John Curtis is a 6th seed, but we all know. I mean, they stoned Acadiana. They stoned Carr. I mean, that's all you need to know. They're that good. If they play to their capability, I think they're the favorite to repeat. In terms of other dark horse teams, if there's any such thing as a dark horse in this particular division, I think Karen Crow at 9
I was going to say,
certainly is, without a doubt. And as far as a lower seed, I think Archbishop Rummel's a pretty dangerous team, having beaten John Curtis and having beaten University Lab.
Absolutely. I mean, just the gauntlet that Rummel went through this year, I definitely can see them getting to a quarterfinal appearance. And then Karen Crow. I mean, don't count out Karen Crow. I don't care who beat who in the regular season. Chance Babineau, their sophomore quarterback, just amazing. They have weapons all over the field. But Acadiana does in its own right. So I think if that matchup happens, it's going to be great. But Karen Crow, they've proved people wrong before. They beat Edna Carr a couple years ago for the state title. So never count out Coach Corville and his squad.
Maybe the most intriguing bracket to me of all 8 is Division II Select. St. Thomas More, the defending champion, sits atop the bracket with unbeaten E.D. White Catholic in the 2nd spot, Lafayette Christian in the 3rd spot, John F. Kennedy out of New Orleans here in the 4th spot with Division I players coached by Linares Elpage. So St. Thomas More just beat LCA at Lafayette Christian, and a lot of people thought LCA would get revenge. Didn't happen. Great win for the Cougars, and they'll be home all the way. E.D. White Catholic, great team, extremely well coached. That offense is one you don't see much, and they do a great job with what they do. We know what LCA is. For people around the state, John F. Kennedy's the unknown. They haven't seen him. But they've got good players, well coached by Linares Elpage. Yeah. And in terms of looking at the dark horse team, look, I'm going to tell you right now, Archbishop Shaw is really dangerous. This is a really good football team. They are potent as can be offensively. They've got a Hall of Fame coach in Hank Tierney. They just beat Karen Crow and scored 57 on them. As mentioned, they've won 8 straight. They beat Rummel. I could go on and on. This is a really good football team. I'd put them in that mix. And the other one I might put in there is Evangel because offensively they're really good. And here's the deal. Shaw and Evangel would have to play in the second round if the seeds hold up. So that's my thought about this particular division.
No, same thoughts, Ken. Shaw, they've kind of flown under the radar as well, but look what Coach Tierney's done with that squad. Definitely a state championship caliber squad. And my other one was going to be Evangel at number 12 seed, talent all over the field. And another one I think I want to just kind of throw in there, De La Salle. I think they have a shot to maybe make a run, but they'd have to go up against a good E.D. White squad in Turlings as well.
Well, I do De La Salle games, so I see them all the time. And
there you go.
And Evan Arso is a good quarterback. Jason Banks is a really good running back. They have size up front on defense. They've played a tough schedule. I wouldn't rule them out, and I think they'll give E.D. White quite a challenge if they get past Buckeye, who can really score. And let's not forget about Madison Prep or Turlings Catholic. These are really good football teams. They've proven that over a long period of time. So I just think this is the most intriguing division of all because of all those teams I just mentioned. Then you get to maybe the second most interesting to me is Select Division III, St. Charles Catholic. It's amazing that you can win 2 straight championships, have the winning streak that you have, and still people are not picking you to win.
Absolutely.
And this has been my number 1 team all year long.
Yep.
I see them frequently. They are the most complete team in that they're solid to good offensively. They're superb defensively, and nobody has the kicking game that they have. And Wayne Stein does an incredible job. The Comets get the number 1 seed. Of course, Calvary Baptist is fantastic. Rhonda Ewan's done a great job. Yeah. Their offense is tremendous. Beat the stew out of Captain Shreve, as I mentioned. And everybody is already anticipating, that matchup, but not so fast. Now, Newman's the 3 seed, a good football team, but University Lab is at 4, and that is a really good football team. Lost only to Rummel, and they've got looming in the distance a semifinal matchup with St. Charles Catholic. Those two scrimmage each other every year before the season starts, so there's great familiarity. So I would give the Cubs a real chance, too. And as for dark horses, how can you ignore number 9 Notre Dame based upon what they've done over an extended period of time, proven themselves consistently? That is a good football team. I'm not dismissing Episcopal either. Travis Bourgeois does a great job. Your thoughts about this division?
Yeah, absolutely. Dunham sticks out to me as a team that can always compete. State runner-up last year to St. Charles. A really, really, really dark horse, a really lower seed, Lake Charles Prep, the 21 seed going up against Pope John Paul. I can see that as a game that they can go in there and win, and I think they can compete. And then they'll have to travel to Catholic and New Iberia the next week, but I think that's another game that they can compete in. Lake Charles has played a really tough schedule this year, but yeah, those two, and then gosh, again, you hate to call them a dark horse, but University of Loud, they're one of those schools. I mean, they would have to go up against St. Charles in the semifinals, but don't count them out. Really good squad, really good quarterback. Would be an interesting matchup.
Oh, look, they're really good. I've seen U High, and they're outstanding. All right, last bracket is Select Division 4, Vermilion Catholic, the number 1 seed. Obviously, when you look at Vermilion Catholic, they've been there, done that. The Eagles can really score. They're undefeated this year. We know what they're all about. But, certainly when you look at the rest of that bracket, Southern Lab's really talented at number 2. And Ouachita Christian is still the team to beat in my mind.
Absolutely.
As the 3rd seed, they lost a game out of state against a really good opponent. St. Martin's Episcopal, the 4th seed with Harlan Berry. But in this particular bracket, I would give the nod to Ouachita Christian overall. Southern Lab's really good. Vermilion Catholic is going to be there. They can really score. So when I'm talking about the top of the bracket, I think certainly those 3 teams stand out.
Yeah, and you're going to possibly get a Riverside St. Martin's rematch in the quarterfinals, which I think will be interesting in its own right. I saw a note on Twitter yesterday. Vermilion Catholic's previous 2 state championships have come in 2003 and 2013. So maybe they're due again here in 2023 for a state championship. But no, Ken, obviously I hate that Southern Lab and Ouachita Christian are on the same side of the bracket. That's a state championship matchup in its own right. But again, going with Ouachita Christian, I think they're the team to beat in this bracket as of right now.
Yeah, and I think Riverside is absolutely getting to the semifinals. They're good up front on both sides of the ball. Really well coached by Lee Roussel. Dedrick Lasty, small in stature, but he's a tremendous player. And they're good. I think Riverside semifinal matchup with Vermilion Catholic looms. And as you mentioned, on the other side, certainly Ouachita Christian, Southern Lab. It's hard-pressed to see anyone else breaking through. I just mentioned Riverside. If you're talking about a dark horse, I don't think they're much of a dark horse, but they're really good. And certainly, I would not ignore Glenbrook either. They play in a really tough district, and that's a good 11 seed right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Glenbrook and then Ascension Catholic at a number 9 seed. They would have to go up against an Opelousas Catholic, but I think at Opelousas Catholic that they can beat and maybe get to a quarterfinal matchup with Vermilion Catholic. But yeah, Glenbrook definitely has a favorable road maybe to get back to the quarterfinals. Would be against a Ouachita Christian squad, but would be a good matchup and a rematch of last year in the playoffs.
Breakdown of the brackets. Hunter is going to join me on Nash Icon 106.1 FM Wednesday evening, this evening at about 6:35 or so to do a lot of this again. And, of course, he'll be on Ken Trahan's original Prep Football Report Friday evening prior to the games and the Countdown Show with Les East and Jude Young at about 6:20 or so. So here we go, my friend. It's here. Let's roll. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I'm absolutely just excited, Ken. I'm glad it's finally here and everything's put to bed and we can play some dang football here.
Always a pleasure, Hunter. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you on radio later today. Have a blessed day.
All right, Ken. Thanks, man.